Great, thank you. Welcome everyone. Today we have the fifth EIP-7928 Breakout call. It's the 22nd October 2025. And we have 3 agenda items today. First of all, we wanted to talk about Coinbase handling. This came up in Discord, and also there were some suggestions that we change how we deal the Coinbase address at the moment. Then second, as usual, we do some testing and specs updates. There were some updates that we can discuss today. And finally, client updates. So let's directly start with the first agenda item, which is the Coinbase handling in the block level access list. To give you a quick recap how it works right now. So the Coinbase address is only included in the block level access list if it actually changes. This means if there is any transaction that has a positive tip, then the Coinbase will see a balance change. The same applies if the Coinbase address receives a withdrawal. So in this case, even blocks without any transactions can still have a block club access list with the Coinbase address included in case the Coinbase received a withdrawal. And For any other, so if there is a block with where the Coinbase address receives no withdrawal and there is no transaction, then the Coinbase address is not included at all. So this is what is spec'd right now, and also the state of the EIP. And I'm happy to discuss if we should change that or if we keep it as is.
Did you maybe mention the use case when there is transaction, but the fee reward is zero? What happened for Coinbase in that case?
In this case, it would also not be included. But this is a good example, yeah. So if the fee reward is zero, then we would not see a call to the Coinbase address, and the Coinbase address would not be included. So a zero value reward is in this case different than a zero value call, because in a zero value call, the address you're calling would still be included, at least as a read, so with all empty changes. But for the reward, it would not be included at all.
This kinda clashes with the state clear EIP, where even we have some tests in East that test this use case when the Coinbase is basically empty but existing, and you reward it at the end. Expectation there is that the Coinbase is going to be touched at the end, removed from the state.
I see the Coinbase is going to be touched. And is it always empty in this case, the Coinbase? Is it only touched if it's empty? Or is it always touched in that scenario?
It's always touched, but only action that needs to happen is if it is empty. That means it needs to be removed from the state.
Yeah, so previously, I think I was pro to not include the Coinbase as a read if the balance doesn't change, like in the case of the empty block or the zero fee payment. But I think now that the point about I think I forget what the straight clearing EIP. So the point about it being touched as part of the I think it might be EIP 161. I can't quite remember right now, but I think that perhaps that's actually like uh I mean a fairly decent argument to actually just include the Coinbase and furthermore just include anything that would be touched as part of EIP 161 as a read. Um,
I would do something in the middle. If the empty fee is transferred to Coinbase, okay, let's include Coinbase. It is same behavior as you're transferring the zero value to any other account. But if there is no transaction, then I would not include Coinbase. But that second part is not. I'm not going to die on that, to be honest. We can always add some edge case where we always add the Coinbase.
Yeah, to me, this feels like the cleanest solution to this, because now I can definitely see the argument for including the Coinbase in this exact edge case that you described with this three-digit EIP that we're talking about. It also, just to echo what Rahul is saying there in the chat, it will also um, allow us to treat a zero value call exactly the same as a zero value balance. So essentially, we would just have a rule in the EIP that the Coinbase address is always included, at least as a read, if there is no other changes happening to the Coinbase account. And then we don't have to think about any of those edge cases. I'm curious what other clients think about this. This is definitely a small change to the specs and also some changes to the EIP required. I guess we will also have to change the tests we have on that topic. All small changes. I'm happy to do so, but let's see what other clients think about it.
I think it makes sense to include it. It just seems a bit more consistent, and we don't have this specific edge case.
Just for Lucas, to quickly summarize, the discussion is about the Coinbase address, how it is included in the block live access list. We are now landing at including the Coinbase address no matter what. So the Coinbase address will always be in the block live access list, and the least it would be in there with empty changes. So there can be balance changes. The Coinbase address can also have nonce changes or code changes, but it will always be in there at least as a read, as a state access. Because previously there was the situation that a block with no transactions, the question popped up, should the Coinbase address be included or not? And what happens if the block reward is 0 versus non-zero? So the easiest solution seems like we have a new edge case for the Coinbase, which says the Coinbase address is always included in the block live access list no matter what.
Always including Coinbase has one problem because it introduces redundancy. We could always get the Coinbase from the block anyways.
Right, yeah, it's a bit of duplicated information there, but I think it's fine because it's only like a very rare edge case. This edge case only occurs if we have a block where the Coinbase address it wouldn't be included anyway. And usually blocks have transactions with positive tips, so I think we can live with that. Great, then just to summarize the to-dos, I will update the specs and the EIP. Rahul, will you update the test cases?
Yep.
Perfect. Is there, maybe asking Felipe, is there anything else that you might be thinking of that we have to change here? I guess not, right?
No, I think the yield side, the spec side needs to change. But yeah, I'm good with this change. It makes sense to me.
Okay, perfect. Great, then
Ju-
let's move forward with that. Yeah, please go ahead.
Just to confirm, so all is included, even if there is no transactions.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
You can have a very probably in the specs it will even simplify the specs a bit because we will just have one line at the very beginning of the block where we put the Coinbase address in there.
I mean, an alternative would be to just have it only if there was, I guess, just one transaction with a zero balance change. I don't know, because always including it seems like almost adding another edge case. Whereas if we just have it so that whenever there's a zero transfer, then that's just always handled the same. That seems the simplest to me, but I mean it's a small difference.
Same here. I will echo what Mark said. It's simpler. If included always, then we have some additional condition that we need to add. If included only if there is transaction, even if the fee value is 0, then we just use what's already there. It's small change, it doesn't matter. We can always have like additional condition, but just wanted to point that up.
I'm fine with this one too. So then the edge case would be we or we include the Coinbase address even if the reward is 0.
Yep.
Good. Okay. Yeah, curious to hear what others think about this. I'm fine with that one too.
I think it's cleaner. This way, this is like any other balance change for an account.
Yeah, so as far as implementing it in Geth, I think regardless of whether it's always include or include as long as there's a, transaction in the block that even if it pays 0 fees, it's still a bit of a special case. And I think what's important from my perspective is that we just settle. So I don't have a strong opinion either way.
Just to confirm, if there is no transaction in a block, the Coinbase will be included. And if there is a transaction in a block with a 0 tip, the Coinbase would also be included, right?
I think that was the always include option, but my understanding of what maybe I misheard, but I think what Mark and Dragan just said was to if that there is an empty block to not include the Coinbase. And if there is a block containing 1 or more transactions, even if they pay 0 fees, to include the Coinbase. That's the other option.
Yeah, that's one.
Okay, interesting. Because I was thinking like, okay, isn't it like from the Coinbase perspective the same if I receive 0 reward through a block with no transactions versus 0 reward through a block with 1 transaction paying 0 tips? Is there some? Yeah, go ahead.
The distinction that Dragan pointed out earlier is that from the EIP for the state clearing, in the case where there is the 0 fee transaction, the Coinbase is actually touched. And because we no longer pay the block rewards at the the in the other case, the Coinbase would not be touched in an empty block without any transactions.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't
Okay,
know. Just
I
maybe
think you got it. Yeah.
someone else can expand on it for me.
No, this is
Yeah.
interesting because it's then actually the tip paying that touches the Coinbase and not the reward, right? Yeah, makes sense because there is no block reward. So okay, because I'm just thinking in the specs we might do that already correctly, but I would have to double check because yeah. But are we then fine with agreeing on that solution that so just to summarize, the Coinbase would then be included in case there is a transaction, even though the transaction has a 0 tip. So if the transaction has a positive tip, the Coinbase is included anyway because it has a balance change. But if the transaction has a 0 tip, then the Coinbase would at least be included as a state access, as a read. Great. And the only situation where the Coinbase address would not be included would then be a block with no transactions. Is that correct too? Okay, yeah. Rahul is also confirming me in the chat. So the Coinbase address would not be included in the block file access list in case if there is no transactions and no system operations touching the Coinbase, which could happen with a withdrawal. Perfect. Yeah, then let's update the EIP, the specs and the tests, and make sure we have it ready for the next release. Awesome. then we can. Before we move on to the second point, is there anything else people want to discuss regarding the Coinbase address tracking?
Tony, could you just summarize again, just to be sure I follow everything?
Yeah. So the Coinbase will be included if it sees a balance change, for example. So if there is any change in the block regarding the Coinbase, then it's included no matter what. So there's no edge case around that. For example, if the Coinbase receives a tip from a transaction, then it's included with a balance change. The interesting case is what happens if the block is empty, so there is no transaction in the block. In this case, the Coinbase is not touched, and the Coinbase would also not be included. So 0 transactions could mean the Coinbase is not included in the BAL. It could also mean the Coinbase is still included in the block level access list, but only if it receives a withdrawal. And then the second interesting case was what if there is a transaction in the block, but it pays 0 tip to the Coinbase. In this case, we agreed that we include the Coinbase address into the block level access list. So in both examples, when there is no transaction and when there is one transaction that pays nothing as a tip, in both transactions, the Coinbase address receives nothing. But in the first case where there is no transaction, the Coinbase is not actually touched, and that's why we don't include it. In the second case, when there is a transaction, then the Coinbase is touched and we include it.
Okay. Yes.
Perfect. Is there anything else regarding the Coinbase tracking before we move on? Great. Then the next point on the agenda would be testing and specs update. I would ask Rahul or Felipe, are there any updates from your side regarding testing and test releases?
Yeah, so clients are passing almost all test cases, the positive ones. So we're at about 89% of test cases that we're currently passing. The remaining 10 test cases has mostly to do with incorrect PAL payloads. And I believe the clients are also passing those, but we're missing some exceptions within Yeast framework. So we'll get that in probably late this week. And I think we should be good to go in terms of the current release. We're also working on a new release for the test that we discussed this past week. That includes the Coinbase updates and some system operations. So we'll soon have a new release coming soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Is there any updates worth sharing from the first DevNet we had? Maybe from clients or from people involved?
I mean, the DevNet is still being set up, if that's what you mean. It's not running yet.
Okay, all good. Perfect. I saw, as I see you right in the call, Stefan, I think you and PK, you were also working on improving Dora, right? Because I had like a very naive Dora implementation at the beginning. And are there any updates? Anything you can already share?
Maybe PK wants to update on the Dora.
Yep. Well, basically, we have a access list visualization in Dora. I've reworked that view a bit to be more performant, so it's client-side rendered and is also able to render really big lists if needed. Another thing that's also added is a comparison feature, so you can post another BRL and compare it to the one that is inside the block. So you can see diffs directly and act on these. If there's anything that's needed or any improvement suggestions, please reach out to me. I'm happy to add them as well.
Amazing. Thank you very much. This is great, especially the diff view. I can see that this will be very handy in the future. Thanks a lot for that. Great, then let's move on to the last agenda item of today. As usual, the client updates. Maybe we can start with Jared.
Yeah, so basically the update on the Geth side is that we have been incrementally merging various parts of the access list changes into the code base. There's still quite a ways to go on that front, but we're working on it. I think now the focus is, while that is happening, also the focus from my end is on the development side is shifting back to trying to optimize the performance on our side, specifically focused on the performance of the state root calculation. So yeah, I hope to have more to share on that soon, but it's in progress at the moment. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome, thanks a lot. And yeah, would be great if you can share some results in the call as soon as you got them. Sounds exciting. Perfect. Then let's continue with Besu.
Yes. On the Bezo side, we are now passing all of the RLP test and also engine test. So we just need to merge the PR that Mirgi made to update the execution spec test repo mapping. So we also started to implement the state root in background at the beginning of the block processing, thanks to block access list. So it's already working, but for the moment, just we are logging the result of the state root computation to compare. But in another PR, we will verify the state root and fail the block if it's not matching. But for the moment, just want to compare if it's working or not. What we want to do also in the next step is to do a shadow fork of mainnet. And like that, we'll be able to measure the impact of the state root in background regarding performance on Bezu. So it will be nice if we can do that. And we are also working and trying to fix the parallelization of execution of transaction with block access list.
Awesome, thank you very much. Let's continue with Nethermind.
Hey, so made quite a bit of progress with the BAL construction. I've been testing out interop with Besu and Geth, and now it's able to get quite a bit past the GLOAS fork, but there are still some like consensus issues after a few epochs. So I'm having a look into that. But I've also just found quite a few kind of consensus issues that were there, even though 100% of the tests were passing. So I'm speaking a bit to make some regression tests for everything I found. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks a lot and great inputs there. This seems like we haven't covered anything yet, everything yet in the tests, and definitely some more things to do here. Thanks a lot for that. Let's continue with Ref.
Hello. So for it, the tests were passing. As of now, we were moving from integrations of our branch to that of Dragon's branch, which I believe will be more architecture friendly, concerning it will be less dependent on the Alloy EVM. The majority of the parts are integrated, but there are certain things I would like to take care of. So that's something we are doing, but overall, it's all right. And possibly I will be the error we are having as of now. I will possibly fix it by the end of the day.
Great. Thanks a lot for this update. Sounds very good. And finally, Aragon.
Yeah, hi. So where we are, we've just, I think yesterday, merged our first PR, which is the basic support for BOWs into main. There's a couple more PRs to go, which hopefully will happen over the next couple of days. So I think we should have a DevNet 0 branch that we create probably tomorrow or Friday. And then after that, we'll do some testing and see where we are. I would say we're about a week behind where I thought we were on the last call, just because we've got sidetracked with Fusaka issues, which kind of took priority. But we're basically back on block level access lists as our primary focus now.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. And let me know or reach out to me, Rahul, Felipe, if you need any help with getting integrated into the tests and everything.
Yeah. So we'll do that. But I think we'll probably either be working on that Friday or early next week, just to set your expectations of. But I'm sure we'll start breaking stuff as soon as we try.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Great. Then this was the last agenda item we had on today's call. Is there anything else people want to bring up?
I just wanted to summarize regarding the DevNets a little bit more, that I've been finding a lot of issues working together with different client teams that I've been holding off, kind of progressing and getting that live. But I think by the end of the week, I think we might be ready. I'm still need to fix something with the consensus layer clients that load CERN Prism interop. There was something that I'm still looking into, and I hope that with Narrowmind it will also be working better, and then we can start the DevNet. I think DevNet 0.
Do we want to have the Coinbase modifications for the next DevNet? Because I think we'll have to do some modification in Bezo.
That's a good question. I think maybe Tony, that's something we could find out before we start, if we want to wait and have that modification in or not.
Okay, Jared and Dragan are saying they want to have it already. I'm happy to go for it, but it's more a question for clients, I guess.
I think it will be okay if we have some tests just to be sure we are working correctly. Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, just to echo what Rahul is saying in the chat, that he's working on tests this week so that we have those individual tests. I think we need a test for an empty block, then a block with 1 transactions paying no tips, and the regular block, and then we should have everything covered there. But then let's agree that in the first DevNet, end of week, next week, that we already include those most recent changes regarding the Coinbase tracking.
Sounds good. Then I'll wait for that.
Perfect. Is there anything else we should discuss today? If not, we can end the call at this point. We can end a little bit earlier, and yeah, see everyone in the next 7928 breakout call in 2 weeks. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.